Let's start out with, what's your full name?
Full name, Evelyn Elizabeth Sabatini Kelly.
And what was your husband's full name?
My husband, James Aloysius Kelly.
Okay. Where were you born?
Detroit, Michigan.
And how about Dad? Where was he born?
Newstown, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Do you know why your parents called you Evelyn, Elizabeth?
No, I guess because my mom liked it.
How about Dad?
I don't know. I guess he went along with whatever my mom wanted.
Did you have any nicknames? Were you called any nicknames?
No.
No? Just Evelyn.
Just Evelyn.
Okay. And you grew up where?
I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and when the Depression hit, approximately I'd be 4 years old, my parents moved back to Pennsylvania from where both of them were originally from.
Did you live in a house or apartment or a farm or what?
When I first landed there, when we first arrived, we had a little place right behind the butcher store. And then within a month or two, my grandmother had a big home only down the street, or maybe 2 blocks or so. We moved in with my grandmother, who had a pretty big home, 3 bedrooms upstairs, big kitchen. And then, as they call them, we had a dining room, and we had like 2 sitting areas or parlors, as they were called in them days.
Did you have electricity?
Yes, we had electricity. No bathroom, no toilet, hot water, because we had coal stove, and the house was heated by coal. We were fortunate to have a furnace, which would come up into one big area, and then the air, of course, went up to the bedroom, but it was chilly, never really hot.
Did most people around you have indoor plumbing? Or
No one had indoor plumbing, and no one ever had a septic tank. I don't know why, we never heard of such a septic tank.
So you had an outhouse?
Outhouse, down, a good ways from the house.
Did you have telephones?
No telephone. We had a radio.
When was the first time you remember having a telephone?
When I moved, when I was 16, then my parents moved back to Michigan because times picking up, the war was on. That's when I got a telephone.
Was there anything special when you were growing up in the house when you lived with your grandma that you remember in the house?
Anything special? We were very fortunate to have a furnace, which meant we had heat beyond the kitchen.
Okay. Who brought in all the coal?
The coal was delivered like through a chute, and then as you needed, my parents, my mother and dad, went down the basement, and they would bring up like in a big pail of coal. That's how we cooked, by coal. And as I got older, sometimes I was sent for a pail of coal.
Who had to clean out the outhouse?
That was my job as I got older. And believe it or not, I liked it. My girlfriends and I would go there, I would go there primarily with bleach and water. We scrubbed everything down once a week. We had no toilet paper. It was newspapers or catalogs, and that was a fun time, believe it or not.
Well, when you lived with your grandma then, who did the cooking? Your mother or your grandma?
My grandmother cooked during the week, and then my mom cooked during the week, on the weekends. So primarily every meal during the week, it was Italian. And then when my mom cooked, it was Irish, potatoes, baked chicken, more English, let's call it.
Did they speak English in the house or Italian?
Well, my mother spoke no Italian. My grandmother spoke no English. My dad spoke no Italian. He spoke English, but his sisters could all speak Italian and English. So when they came into the home and would converse with my grandmother, it was primarily in Italian. And if they had anything to say, they'd say it to my mom in English. But growing up, as we would sit around the table, we were only 5 or so, I had two sisters, by the way, and my grandmother would teach us how salt and pepper, how to count, basically how to talk Italian. And eventually you learn.
What was your favorite food?
My favorite food, salami sandwiches. That was one of my big time favorite foods. We had pasta every day. It was all different shapes with different meat, but it was still pasta. And we always had salad. In the morning, my mom would make, no, in the morning we had cereal or hot cakes or primarily oatmeal, which I couldn't stand. And my mother made it every morning. And every morning I didn't eat it. We had toast, and that was it.
You said you had two sisters, and they're older or younger than you? Or
I was the oldest. My sister, Marie, was about 2 years younger than myself. And then my younger sister, Dorothy, was 3 years after her. So 5 years difference between my sister, my youngest, and myself.
And no boys?
No boys, no.
And Aunt Dorothy now
is my youngest sister.
And your other sister, Maria, died?
My sister Marie was named, actually her name was Marie Roberta. But we always called her Marie. She passed away when she was 9 years old. She developed a sore throat, and from the sore throat it went into strep throat, and from that went rheumatic fever, and penicillin wasn't in the picture then, and she was hospitalized. She was in the hospital about 2 months before she passed away. And basically they told my dad she drowned in her own fluid, which meant her lungs filled up with fluid, and evidently they didn't monitor it that closely, or they didn't take it out. But today, haven't been done nothing.
But you were living in Pennsylvania then?
Right, in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mom, where did you and Dad meet?
We met actually in his home. He had only been home 3 days from the war, and I had been friends with his sister Eileen growing up. My aunt only lived right across the road, or alley as we called it, from the Kellys. And when I would go down, my parents lived in Old Forge, and that was about 8 miles. And when my parents would go down there and visit, I would play with Eileen and her brother Michael and Ann and the rest of them, because your dad at that time, well, at all the time, was 5 years older than me. So when you're 12, boys 17 years old aren't playing with little 12-year-old girls or even looking at them. So I had met him. Eileen had just been married, and I had been down visiting my cousin, and she said, let's go over and see who Eileen married. So we went over to see who Eileen was married, and your dad happened to be sitting at the table doing crossword puzzles. Helen and I walked right by that guy, and we went in the living room because Grandma Kelly was playing the piano, and she loved to have a party. So she was having evidently a party for her son, but he was out in the kitchen, and the rest of the neighbors were in the house, and she was singing and playing songs. So I sat down, and after a while, he must have came into the room. I did not notice him. And Grandma Kelly said, Jimmy, why don't you dance with Evelyn? Dance. She's over playing the piano, and we're writing. So he picked me up, walked me right over to Grandma Kelly and said, Mom, I'm going to marry this girl. And I thought, wow, does that guy have a good line of BS or baloney? And
you were how old?
I was 19.
He was home from the service.
Permanently home after 3 days.
So that was his party?
I guess it was. No, it was actually not his party. It was more or less Eileen and her new husband and the group of neighbors that they knew.
Did you like him at first when he said that?
Oh, well, I thought he was a nice-looking guy, but I didn't like him until I didn't know him.
Were you allowed to date by that point?
Not by my father. If my father was there, I wouldn't have been.
But had you dated anybody else?
Yes, I went bowling, had to the movies. That was the extent of my dating.
So,
My dad thought if you went out once a week with anyone, you don't need to go again.
so after you met Dad and Dad said that,
Yeah. Well,
how long was it before he actually...
Well, actually, then when I got ready to leave to go home that night, come on 9 o'clock, I thought I got to get myself. I'm on a bus, and I had to get a bus in front of their house down to the town, and then another bus up to where I live. So I thought I better get myself moving. So when I decided to, my cousin and I were going to move, he said if I liked, he would go on the bus with me up to where I lived. Well, of course, I was flattered. He was a nice-looking guy, and why not?
So he took you on the bus?
Yeah, we went back to my aunt's, and we met my aunts, my dad's sister, and he just stayed a little while and made a date for the next night where he came up there too. And my cousin Sarah, her brothers and sisters, the Italians, they say they're all, when you meet one, you better meet them all. So they were all around casting judgment on him, I guess. So he evidently liked it because then he made a date. After he stayed a couple hours, he went home and made a date for the next day, which would be kind of maybe a Wednesday or Thursday. Only I met him downtown in front of the movies. We were going to go out to eat and go to a movie. So that we did. And right after the movie, then he took me back to his parents' home. Evidently it was dinner time. So I had known Eileen, I knew Ann, I knew his sister. So we had dinner there and then back up to my aunt again. Well, let me see. Next day I don't think I seen him, but then he asked when I was leaving. I was leaving on a Saturday, so he came up with me, my one suitcase, and I was going back to Pennsylvania, back to Detroit by train. So he put me on the train, and away I went. Well, then, he got my address, and he started writing to me. That was January. So March, I had a couple letters from him, and, they were nice letters. And one night, I did have a phone by that time. Picked up the phone, and here was Jim. So he said, "Hey, guess where I am?" I don't have a clue. "Where are you?" He said, "I'm in Dearborn, Michigan. My sister lives out here." So, okay. He said, "Can you get out?" Well, maybe I can get out. Maybe. So I asked my dad, and he asked me where I was going. And I said, just to meet a friend. And he let me, just remember the time you have to be home. So probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock. I did go out. I did meet my boyfriend. That I thought that, yeah. And, oh boy, he was lovey-dovey. So every night he thought I was going to be seeing him, but no, that wasn't so. I could not do that. But he would call me up on the phone, and he didn't even have a job. He had a permanent job with the railroad, and when he came out to Michigan, I don't know what he had in mind, but he said, "Let's get married." I said, "Are you crazy? Married? My father, that'd be the end of my family. My father would disown me. No way." Well, can't get married, so he said, "Well, I guess I'll stick around here." So he got himself a job, gave up his railroad, because he had seniority when he went into service, gave up his railroad job, and then just lived in Dearborn with his sister. And I would see him once a week.
What did he do then?
He had many jobs. One job was, he was a teller in the bank. Well, he didn't like that job. He worked a week. Next week, I don't know how many jobs. He must have had 5 or 10. He had so many jobs that my dad kept saying, "Where does that guy work?" "Oh, he works on the railroad, Dad." If I ever told my dad how many jobs he had, I'd be the last of that guy.
Well, why did he keep having different jobs?
Because he wanted to find a job that he liked and
he could support.
I guess so, but he had intentions of getting married. I didn't have intentions to get married. I liked the guy, and was serious, but not to get married.
And so when did you finally decide, when did he finally say, when he said, let's get married, when did you finally say yes?
Oh, I didn't. That was about March, around June. Said, yeah, okay, we can get married. Well, the minute I mentioned married to my dad, no way, he said, I want you to go to school, travel, get an education, then get married. Well, I don't think so. I was in love,
That was in June.
That was
When
in
did you
June,
actually?
and we actually got married in October. About August, we went up to getting serious, went to see the priest, made arrangements to get married in October.
What day in October?
October 23rd, we got married in 1946. And my dad, up until the day of the morning of the wedding, he wasn't even going, because he said, this is what I want you to do. And I said, Daddy, I'm not doing that, I'm getting married. Well, you're going to get married, you're going to get married. But he wasn't even coming to the wedding.
But the wedding was going to be at his house.
Yeah, at home. My mom was very supportive. She went with me. We got invitations. We ordered a cake. Yeah, I'm proceeding to get married, but no Dad. As a matter of fact, when we went to practice, we practiced the night before with the priest without my dad. The priest was unaware my dad wasn't going, but my mom evidently, I think you had to sign that I was, she gave her consent. Okay, that night, we had our rehearsal, and then I went up afterwards up to Kitty's. They had a nice little meal, which did not include my dad because he wasn't coming. My mom and I came home the next morning. I'm in the bathroom, and he knocks on the door, and he said, well, when you come out, I'll have a word with you. And I thought, oh, another sermon, don't get married. So I thought, I'm going to stand my ground. I go out, and he said, tell you what, you need a big kiss, I'll walk you down the aisle. Okay, Dad. So from then on, it was fine. But I would love to see my husband, my Jim's face. He said, when I looked down and seen your father there, I don't know what he thought. I think he got frightened.
Because he wasn't expecting.
No way. Not blowing walking me down the aisle. But after that, my dad was just stubborn. Evidently, I was stubborn. And
Obviously, Dad was.
yeah.
He kept at it.
Yeah, it didn't frighten him, that's for sure. So,
Did you have a song at your wedding?
oh, I must have. I can't even remember. I was so in love. That's all I was thinking about. Oh boy, number one, here was my stipulation. Till the night before I got married, I had to be home at 11 o'clock. He didn't care who was getting married, what was going on. He'd be home at 11 o'clock. So all I was thinking about was, wow, when we get married, we are going to be all over town. Well, not so.
Did you have a car?
No, we had no car, but he had a job. And so we did it during the war. It was even hard to get apartments. We had one bedroom in a stranger, Mrs. Davis, her name was, in her home. Her bed, kitchen privileges, so that when we come home from work, we could cook dinner. Well, in the meantime, your dad was applying for a job with the Dearborn Police. He wanted to, get a kind of a job that paid well and had security. So within a month after we got married, he was notified that he would be accepted, more tests involved. Stipulation, you had to live in Dearborn. So we still couldn't find an apartment in Dearborn. Then again, another bedroom in someone else's house, total strangers, but they were nice to us. All we did is pay our rent. Within a month, then we got an apartment, a little $22 a month rent. But I made $40 and your dad made $45. So between the two of us, we still didn't have a car because you couldn't get a car. Your name had to be on the list. We couldn't even buy a refrigerator. It was an ice box because during the refrigeration, everything, and everybody's getting married and everybody's having their name on the list. So That's the way it was. We were in our little $22 a month rent. It came furnished, of course. Little kitchen table with 2 chairs, little bathroom, 1 bedroom, a sitting room, and a nice hallway, big entranceway that we could have made a bedroom, but we didn't. For $22. But if I paid $5 more, I could use the landlord's washing machine, which we did for about a year. Then we bought our own washing machine. And no basement.
Okay, so I want to ask you, I know where you and Dad got married and what you did there. Where did your parents meet?
That's a good question. Oh, my parents must have, my dad used to, he loved to dance. So he would go from Old Forge down to Pittston where my mom lived. And in them days, they must have had dances at the I call it hose house, at the fire department. And evidently he met my mom at dancing.
Grandma danced?
I don't know if I often asked him. My dad danced because he told me he had 1 bottle of champagne dancing. Yeah, my dad loved to dance. Never seen my mom and him dancing. So one day I said to him, "Hey, Daddy, is Mom a wildflower or what?" "No," he said, "I met her at a dance. She was sitting there and he must have liked her because he kept on going back to the dance." And they got married I have their marriage license. They got married in Detroit and then went out to Detroit. No, they got married in Pennsylvania.
Do you know how old they were?
Yes, they were in their late 20s,
28,
29. It was. That's why my dad wanted me not to wait and see the world. There's more to life than getting married, he tried to tell me.
We're both, so your father is Italian.
Right.
And your mother is Irish.
Through and through.
Okay. Were they both born in America?
Yes. Both my parents were born in America. My dad was born in Iron Mountain, Michigan, and my mother was born in Pittston, Pennsylvania.
And what about their parents?
My dad's parents came from Italy, Perugia, and my mother's parents, I believe, came from County Cork in Ireland.
Do you know what was your grandmother and grandfather's name on your dad's side?
On my dad's side, her name was Mary Martinelli, I believe, maiden name. His name was Peter Sabatini. My mother's name was Mary, let me see, Cox. And then her dad's name was Patrick Riley.
So your mother was May Riley.
Yes,
And then
Mary.
She went by Mary. And your grandmother then was
also Mary, but went by Mary.
Okay, that was her name.
Mm-hmm.
All right, tell me something about your childhood growing up.
Oh, my child growing up, it was Depression time. We were all poor, but we were all happy bunch of kids. And no one had any more than the next one, and if you did, you shared. I lived my dad had 3 sisters, and I lived right next door to 2, and one right down the alley. And his brothers, 2 of them had been killed in the service. I only knew, one was living in Detroit, Michigan, one lived in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and another one lived right near us in Old Forge, and I had 9 male cousins, one all my age from each family, but the rest were all a little older, so no one ever picked on me or bothered me.
There probably wasn't much bullying there.
Not that I know of. We all played games, mostly boy games, because there was few girls.
Do you remember any of the name of the games you played?
Yeah, Leap the Frog, hide and seek. Of course, I played jacks with girls, and we played ball. Just toss the ball, baseball, so have it.
What's your earliest memory of And
My earliest memory is driving back from driving to Pennsylvania from Michigan, and I sat up in the front seat with my dad, and I was looking out, and all I looked see approaching Scranton, and all I could see was all these lights, and I went, "Wow, what a big place that was!" It's nice.
did your family have traditions like our family does? Did you have family traditions?
Oh, of course, we always ate on certain holidays. You ate certain foods, but no, not
Not any ongoing.
no.
They did.
No.
Okay. If you could do it all over again and change anything, what would it be?
I would have paid more attention to my dad, went to school, became a nurse, and then got married.
So you would have became a nurse?
Yes, I would have. And I had the opportunity to choose not to.
All right, so that kind of goes into this. If you regretted not doing something in your life, what would it be?
Becoming a nurse.
What kind of skills did your parents have?
My dad. My mom was a great cook and a wonderful mother. She was so patient. My dad, he was an electrician by trade, but he was a carpenter, a plumber. He just about could do anything. So therefore, I thought my husband should be able to do as much as my dad. But he couldn't. Or didn't even try to.
He had different skills.
Yes,
So.
he was, of course, he was into radio and electronics. My dad wasn't.
How long were your parents married before Grandpa died? Do you know?
No, I don't.
How long were you and Dad married?
Before what?
Before Dad died.
45 years or 40, something like that. More than 45, 47 or something.
Okay, so if I had to say to you, what do you think is the key to a successful marriage? What would it be?
I would say, how do you say, sharing it, communicating, and don't hold back. Don't be frightened. Just say what you got to say, and so you get in trouble for it, too bad. That's the consequence. I'd say communication. And, of course, being nice to one another.
Who were your childhood heroes and why?
My childhood, well, my dad was, because I thought he could do anything and everything. He could fix anything that was broken.
Did you know that? Did you know?
My dad?
Who was your hero?
Oh, no, but I know he could do. He knew he could fix stuff. No, probably not.
Did your parents make you participate in sports in school, or
We never had sports. We did not have. I only went to school half a day for 10 years. We never had music. We never had gym. We just didn't have. We had reading, writing, mathematics, science, whatever, and a lot of homework.
What age school did your parents go to?
My dad went to second grade. He got upset one day, the teacher scolded him, he jumped out the window and never went back. Then he was sent to work picking slate in the coal outside the coal mines. My mother went up to 8th grade.
So that would have been pretty educated.
Yes.
For that.
Mm-hmm. My mom was always a great speller.
What wars did our family fight in? And who did and who fought in?
My dad was in World War I. He volunteered. He was wounded. And so then after a time, he must have been sent home. I mean, I have his discharge papers, but I don't know the length of time. I know he got a Purple Heart.
Okay, we have some photos and records.
Okay,
from
that's my dad.
Your dad.
Mm-hmm.
What about your grandpa?
To my knowledge, he was never in any war. No, neither one of them.
What about our dad?
Your dad was in World War II, volunteered. His two brothers were in World War II. One never did come back. He was killed.
And his name is?
Michael.
They call him Slack?
Mm-hmm.
And what about his other brother?
That was Jack. He went to the Philippines. And your father and Slack went to Europe. Your dad, I believe, I think it was Normandy. At Anna, he landed in Normandy. D-Day or whatever was the big day.
But he wasn't hurt in the war?
No, he was not wounded. No.
So when he got out of the service, he went to the police force eventually, after a lot of jobs, and then stayed there until he went back into
17 and a half years he was on the police department, and he hated it every day. Well, number one, he worked shift work. And you didn't get paid overtime for working Christmas and New Year's and all that. And the pay was good, and we had so many dependents, and we had hospitalization, so we stayed there. And he was in the reserve. And then when Kennedy, the wall went up in Germany, and Kennedy called the reserves, and he was in Army intelligence, and he was one of the first to be called. So he gladly went.
I had heard that at one point Dad tried to get into the CIA.
Yes, and they told him he needed college.
So other than his college. But yet he had a son that has been involved in the government still. He still has a Jim.
And he has his two sons went into the service.
Right.
Both Jim and Tim.
Okay, before I move on to our family, Mom, I wanted to ask you, when you were growing up, where did your dad work and did your mom work?
Well, my mom did not work once they got married, but my mother was a dressmaker. She used to make wedding gowns for people, and I guess she could make anything if she was a dressmaker.
And what about your father? Where did he work?
I don't know where he worked. Before I was born, I have no idea. But out in Detroit, he worked for Packard Motor Company, and then when the Depression came, Packard Motor Company folded up, so therefore he was an electrician too there, and then he went back to Pennsylvania, and his brother was also an electrician, and he got my dad in the electrical union, so wherever the union would send him on a job, let it be New Jersey, Delaware, wherever my dad would go.
But he had no formal training then, or he did have formal training as an electrician?
No, I think he just picked it up on his own. He never went to school to be an electrician. I do know his last job was Dearborn High School, where Tricia graduated from.
Who was the oldest relative that you remember as a kid?
My grandmother.
She would have been the oldest?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you remember most about her?
Oh, that she wore long dresses and her hair up in a bun, and that she made macaroni pasta every day.
And how about, if you had to remember one thing about your mother, what would it be?
She was just easygoing. You could get away with a lot more with my mom than with my dad.
When Grandma married Grandpa, so her name became Sabatini. Do you know anything about that name?
No.
I don't know what it means.
I have no idea other than, no.
Or where it came from?
No, but they came from Perugia, Italy, up into Iron Mountain, Michigan, where the copper mines were. And evidently they worked in the mines till, I'm sure that's how they got to this country. The copper mines paid their way, and how they had to work. And then evidently they must have learned about the coal mines in Pennsylvania. Because they were all coal miners.
They're all coal miners.
Mm-hmm. All but my dad, who did not want to go in the mines.
So he came from a big family.
A family of 10.
Your mother came from a family of
about 8.
So that's a lot of kids.
Right.
Between all of them, is there any famous or infamous, meaning anybody that got in trouble, was a big breaker, did?
No.
Nobody?
Believe it or not.
In all of them?
Nope. They weren't alcoholics. They weren't fighters. No.
Okay. Oh, this must have just started in our generation.
Yeah. Most of the Irish bunch.
All right, now we're going to go into the next generation. Talk about your children and growing your family in the early years when you and Dad got married.
Okay. Well, when I got married, I always thought, when I would go down to visit my aunt and Uncle Jack, my Aunt Nellie, who had 9 children, and they would all sit around that table. I thought that was so much fun that everybody, if you didn't reach for a potato, you missed out on your potato, you didn't get it. But I just thought that was, big families was a lot of fun.
So you always wanted to have a big family?
Yeah.
Your dad?
I guess so. He came from one. We never really sat down like the kids today and said, how many children are we going to have? No, we didn't do that. What came.
You were working when I was born.
No, I was working when you were born, yes. And then I quit, and after a year, I went back to work, and my parents, I would bring you up to my parents, and every night I'd go up there to get them. And then as time went on, my mom said, oh, just leave her here. Of course I'm going to leave her there. It was easier for me than to go get her. But always on the weekends, we always had you. But my mom and my dad just thought, oh, you were the smartest, best kid going. He would sit you on his lap, read you the comics, taught you how to use the phone, I guess all the basic little stuff that little girls, and you could do no harm. He thought you were just so smart.
And they lived in East Dearborn. How far away did you live from them?
And we lived in East Dearborn. A couple miles, about 4 miles, 3-4 miles.
I forgot to ask you this earlier.
We eventually got a car.
I was going to ask you that too. What was the first car you and Dad had?
It was I think it was a Nash. It was a coupe. It was a little car.
People
and then we had
seatbelts then, or
no.
district chairs.
No. Then we had our name in, and we did get like I say, a new car, a Ford.
Do you remember how much you paid for it?
No, a couple thousand.
Remember what color it was?
Black, because your dad wanted the black car.
Okay, when Dad and you got married, did Dad have any, because I remember growing up, Dad having a lot of traditions for us. Did he have them when you got married, or they just came about later?
No, they came about. He made them. As more children we got, he made the rules. I was busy, cleaning after you, bathing after you, washing clothes. I wasn't thinking in the terms of games. He was the game guy.
Okay. Do you remember some of our family traditions?
Yeah. We would have banks. We would have meetings. And, of course, you always had to say in your rosary at night. Everybody didn't want to do that, but they did it.
Kneeling around your bed,
yeah.
saying your rosary?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought that just gave you and Dad a break from us. Really.
Maybe it did. I don't know.
What about, do you remember us painting the windows? Was that any of that?
That was your dad. I was not a painter. He painted them every Christmas. And then over in Italy, he won prizes.
Painting?
Mm-hmm, for painting windows. One time he got, what was the prize? A pair of floor-shine shoes. What do I got to do with these? I'm in the military. What do I need floor-shine shoes for? But he got them.
What talents do you think that Dad had that stand out to you?
Writing. His Aunt Mary wanted him to go to Fordham University and take up journalism. Instead, he went in the Army.
Think you ever regretted that?
Going in the Army? No, I don't think so. No. Of course, he wrote, but never, He wrote and wrote and wrote. He would write on a piece of toilet paper if he had to.
Oh, the poems, that's right. Was he writing poems when you met him?
Yes.
Because, I mean, he wrote right up to him.
Yeah, in fact, when the first time he wrote me a letter, I thought, wow, I didn't even know them big words. I didn't even know what they meant. I didn't know.
Did you have any college classes? Did you ever go to college?
Yeah, I did. When I got to be, let me see, in my late 50s, I thought, I think I could go to college. I went 6 months, and I didn't have algebra in school. And algebra was getting harder and harder. I remember calling Trish up for the answers. And then I thought, you know what? It's coming on winter time now, and the roads are going to be bad. I think I'll quit for the winter and go back in the spring. But I'm never going back.
Oh, well, that's a good question. So if you were going to talk to your grandchildren,
I would definitely
what would you say to them about going to school or?
Boy, stay in school, whatever you do, don't drop out, because you can't push a broom today, get a job being cleaning a building or anything without a degree. Go to school, pay attention, and above all, pay attention to your parents, because they know more than you know. Believe me. And they're only going to send you in the right direction. They're not going to sending down the paths to harm.
So if you had to say something to the future generations or our family, if you wanted them to know that you've learned from experience or what you've been told,
go to school.
Go to school?
I would say so.
Okay. This is what I'm interested in. So, is there any family secret recipes that have been passed down in our family?
Other than spaghetti.
Yeah, besides, the question is beyond the spaghetti sauce.
Well, heck, the sauce, but because with spaghetti sauce comes lasagna, comes gnocchis. Basically, it's all sauce.
Okay, is that your favorite? What's your favorite food now, Mom?
Pork roast.
Pork roast? Why?
Pork is my favorite.
What was Dad's?
Oh, roast beef, mashed potatoes, peas, potatoes. Oh, I like scalloped potatoes. I like macaroni and cheese.
If I had to ask you, what are the things that Dad cooked the best besides his spaghetti sauce? What would it be? Did Dad cook?
Yeah, he made soup. Yeah, he used to make soup, big pot of soup, all different kinds of soup. And we had to tell him at least 5 times how good it was. Not once, but 5.
Do you think he was a good cook?
Yeah, but he never cooked early in our life. He cooked later in life.
Because he's not here for me to ask him this. So I'm asking you, what do you think is the most important thing we would want to remember about Dad? What was the most important thing you remember about him as a husband?
He was a good husband. He was very loyal, and his theory was, first comes God, then comes your mother. You know, to obey. He didn't go for sass and back.
He also did, though it wasn't a big capital punishment, he didn't hit.
Never. I never got spanked either. I got hollered, and that was enough for me. And my dad would scold me once, but never enough. But your dad, to my knowledge. Yeah, I think he did give the boys a good slap once in a while.
Yeah, they could probably attest more than this. When you were growing up, what had the most impact on you when you were growing up? Any world event, not in your family, but
a war.
Which war?
World War II.
Okay.
And Pearl Harbor.
Okay. And what about as an adult? What world events have had an impact on you?
Still wars. Why do we have to have wars? Wars, what have we accomplished? Other than losing people.
What's the one thing that you most want people to remember about you?
Oh, heck. That I wasn't I wasn't too stern. I think I was an easy mom. I think I was kind of a pushover sometimes.
You were certainly easier to deal with than Dad.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you a couple things about us growing up that some of us remember and some of us maybe don't. First of all, you try to teach your kids lessons in life, and what do you think is the most important life lesson you were taught from your mother and father?
Obey.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Pay attention.
What do you think is the most important life lesson that you've tried to instill in us?
Do as you're told, not as you want.
Okay. This is just off the top of my head. What was the best gift you had growing up? What was the best gift you got as a kid?
As a kid?
Yeah.
Well, ice skates. Ice skates.
I just think of all of our Christmases and how they were every year. It's such a big deal. I wonder that.
Well, we had always had a big tree, and clothing always. Pajamas was always on. You could just got them, but I got a pair of ice skates.
So that's what they do.
Oh,
Of all the places that you've ever traveled to, which ones do you remember the most that you liked? Because you traveled a lot.
yes. I liked Ireland. I thought Africa was very educational. They were all very different. I liked Thailand. That was a kind of a triangle. Thailand, Burma, and Cambodia. That we were not even allowed in Burma or Cambodia.
Well, so you were pretty old. You're 85 this year.
And
And this year you already have traveled to Thailand, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana.
Thailand was
Still
like that.
traveling, Mom.
Yeah. I keep breaking bones on me.
All right, I want to ask you two more questions and we're done.
Okay.
I'd like to know, tell me each something about your children that makes them special or what you remember most. I'll start with your youngest, Amy. Amy was born where?
Mimi was born in Vicenza, Italy.
Okay. Tell me something special about her.
Oh, she had so many brothers and sisters that just catered to her. She didn't have to do anything, but she'd just wet her pants and be changed. She just had to have her diaper changed by everybody, no matter whatever was going on. She wanted part of it. The reason she got her name Mimi was no matter what anyone was doing and she wanted, she'd be over at the me. So they finally just stuck Mimi on her. She was a good little girl. Couldn't walk till she was 16 months old, but she was a good little girl. Yeah, of course she was a good little girl. Everybody was carrying her around.
Well, it was a nice legacy for her to be born in England.
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm.
What about Timmy?
Oh, Tim, he had another nice too. He went to Italian school when he was 3 years old. Of course, he didn't like what he had to wear, a little smock that he couldn't stand. And sometimes I'd put him out for the bus, and next thing you know, he'd come back in and tell me that the bus didn't show up or something. He'd hide behind the garbage can, and the bus would miss him.
How old was he then?
3. Mm-hmm. But he could go to
school.
Yeah, till and they sang, Old MacDonald and all them things in Italian, but he knew them.
What was he known for in our family?
Sure, probably mischievous, tease, and more tease.
And he's still funny. He still has a good sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, he does, but he still likes to tease.
Yeah, what do you think? I didn't ask this on Timmy. What's Timmy's quality as an adult that he has that
he's very caring. He's very caring, very very patient with the people that he's taking care of.
How about me? What do you think that she's developed as she's grown older?
Oh, she's a great mother. She's a great cook. She's very spiritual. Yeah.
Okay, we're on to Sally.
Sally was our dishwasher. Sally would wash dishes.
She still is a cleaner.
Yep, she's still but she was the dish, and she was so tiny and small. Your dad would be looking at her, and she'd be carrying Neem on her hip, and Neem was almost as big as Sally was.
How didn't Sally make money? She babysit, or how did she make one of the questions is how did Sally make money when she was a kid? I don't know.
Other than baby, your dad would give her $1 for helping. He said, Sally, I see you help your mom so much. Here's $1 for you, Sally. I don't know how she made money.
Growing up, so when she grew up, what do you think? What do you see as Sally's strength now?
She's still very giving. Yeah, and caring.
Okay, we're on to Nancy.
Oh, Nancy Pye. Nancy knew how to eat a lot and then go in and lay down and never come out till all the dishes were done. And Nancy could put her eyes on every day. She was always putting eye makeup on and practically missed the bus every day.
Well, what class in school did Nancy got like?
Gym, believe it or not. Failed gym.
Were her and Sally and Tricia all in Girl Scouts?
Yes.
Yeah. Nancy was in high school though. One of her big. She was
homecoming queen. And,
very, very good.
Yeah.
As she grew up, what do you think Nancy's developments were strength?
Caregiving again.
So that kind of runs in
the family. Yeah, they're all caregivers.
Sally's nurse.
Yeah.
That's caregiving. She's a teacher.
Yeah, and Tim is caregiving. Sally was Nancy working the same job.
All right, Jim.
Jim was our boy Jim. When Jim was born, your grandmother, oh boy, boys went a long way with her. And Jim had a paper route. And I'd get up and look out and see that if the snow was there, I made sure I'd take him in on the truck. And he and I would always go out to breakfast afterwards, but we'd never tell the other kids. That was our treat, our secret.
So that's something you still remember.
Yeah. Jim was always a good kid. Never seemed to get in trouble. Where Tim had a little, if there was a trouble around, Tim kind of had to be there.
As Jim has become an adult, what do you think? What do you see in Jim? What do you see in Jim that is like that?
He's kind of straightforward. Tells you as it is.
Was Jim named after that?
Yes, he was. James. Not Aloysius, just James. James Michael, I believe.
Okay. How about Trish?
Patricia. Oh, Patricia was just a sweet girl. She's still a sweet girl. But she knew when she was in 10th grade that she wanted to be a teacher. She had her college all picked out and papers all filled out, and we didn't have a clue where that school was.
She's the only one of us that's
made up her mind, stuck to it. Mm-hmm.
As far as her education.
Yep. And it's now.
When she was in school, did you have to study?
No, studying came easy for Trish. It really did. She could just, I think, read it and remember it, and fortunate for her.
Was she on teams and stuff at school? Because I'm not home, I don't remember that.
Well, over in Italy she was. She was on the swim team, and in high school, I don't know what she was into. She must have been into drama, I have no idea. I had to pay attention, like too many others to me.
No, she wasn't a problem.
Nope, she wasn't a problem.
And as an adult, what do you see? What do you see some of the qualities in Tricia that you think?
She's a big believer of education. Yeah, that's her priority in life. Everybody should do that.
Yeah,
It's a good thing.
and she's very independent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, since I'm number one with
Okay.
you and ours, how about me then?
Oh, you were always a very good girl, Connie. You were like the mother. You could take charge. And I remember you'd have to be giving Tricia a little bottle, and you're only 5 years old yourself, but you managed to take care of all the babies that came in. You were a mother's helper.
How about growing up? With the pretty hair looks like your dad.
Your dad, you look like him. You do. You favor your dad more than the rest of the ones do, I think.
I think that was a compliment.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that you would end up with as many grandchildren?
No, and I'm only sorry or hope that your dad could have lived longer. Oh, of course we have to say number one, Louis. Louis was like the king of the roost there. He was the only, I think he was the only grandchild ever born. Louis could do no wrong. Everything Louis did was cute till Jim would sit on and entertain. Louis could entertain him and talk about stories. But after the storytelling was over, he'd want, take me for an ice cream, Grandma. Let's go down to the lake, Grandma. He'd have me wore out. I'd say, please, Louis, don't you want to call your parents? Don't you get lonesome? No, because he got too much attention at our house.
Well, he was the first.
Yes, evidently the first.
So you have how many grandchildren?
Now I have about 25.
25 grandchildren.
30.
How many great-grandchildren?
30 great, by marriage and all, but they're still, I consider,
And soon to be what?
great.
Soon to
One
be
great. Is that what you call it?
Yep.
I'll be Grandma. Great. Brianna, though, called me one time. She was just a little visiting with her mom, and she sat next to me. She said, don't sit next to Grandma Great because she's fragile. And she's a little fragile thing herself.
That's kind of true, though.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing I want to ask is, did any family sayings that you have, do you remember any of the family sayings?
I remember one thing your dad tried to teach you. If someone picked on one Kelly, they better all be there to help the rest of them. Whether they're right or wrong, you go to their aid.
Did you all stick together?
Mm-hmm. I hope so, and I hope after I'm gone that you don't fall apart. You don't have to agree on everything, but at least be friendly. Be loving. Be caring.
That's good, Mom. I think. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that
I hope not.
anything else that you would want us to know about you or remember about you?
No, I wish I could ride a bike. That's
Oh,
about,
that's sweet.
I would get I would be all over the place with one bad leg, one good leg. No, nothing. I think I've enjoyed my life. I'm thankful, to have done all I have done, and thankful that everyone took me places with them.
Well, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mom, for answering all the questions.
And thank you, Dave, for having me in your beautiful office.
You're welcome.
Yes.
We love you, Mom.
We love you too. I'm very fortunate, though. In-laws, even though there's some are gone, they have always been nice to me. Grateful. And I'm lucky. I have some good in-laws.